not a liberal America and we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
I like hypothetical questions. People who avoid hypothetical questions are looking to use situational ethics to keep from answering or getting to the crust of a question. And that's why I like hypothetical questions. They allow me to get right to the bone of what I'm asking somebody. So keeping that in mind, let's do a thought experiment. So imagine you got a Christian businessman and his business is failing. Personal finances are a mess through no fault of his own. He's a good guy. And now a cartoon genie appears on his right shoulder and whispers into his ear. He says, listen, if you commit a little consumer fraud, you can get by. See? So, but immediately, a little Democratic genie pops up on the other side and says, the Lord will see you. And so, normally, a story like that, that'd be all she wrote. But now, suppose a MAGA genie, a Marjorie Taylor genie, right? Pops up and says, shit, son, you don't have to do anything wrong. You vote for us. We'll do it for you. You keep your hands clean and reap the white privilege that we promised you. So now Mr. Christian, he doesn't have any objection from the pastor. No objections from, his friends, parishioners, the neighbors. Even the media absorbs says, yeah, no problem. So what does Mr. Christian do? The only voice that Mr. Christian hears that objects to hiring somebody to do the evil for you is his own conscience. And Mr. Christian ought to listen to that. Okay, so, I hear things like, well, yeah, geez, I hear people say that Trump is God's tool. He's Christianity's tool to get the work of Christianity done. And he is not a Christian, not necessarily, doesn't need to be, that God uses people like this. And they say often that Cyrus is an example in history of where God has used ungodly people for his purposes. So, all right, let's look at that. I mean, you hear that. So let's look at Cyrus. And Cyrus is mentioned in my grandfather's Bibles right here. Cyrus is mentioned in the book of Daniel. He's mentioned in Chronicles 36, Ezra chapter 1, the book of Isaiah, where Isaiah actually he prophesies that Cyrus will appear and save the Jews. But all throughout Scripture, Cyrus is seen as in a positive light. He's not a bad guy. He's not a Jew. He was a Persian and a real person. And that's not just, and the Bible has a lot of actual history, especially the Old Testament, as it pertains to the trials and tribulations of the Jewish people. So, but he was a real person. In fact, his name was Cyrus II. He was named after his grandfather. And he was a Persian and apparently a wise and peaceful ruler. And he treated the people he conquered with respect. He understood that power rested in the loyalty of his people and his tolerance for religious and customs of the people who were conquered was, allowed for a long period of stability and prosperity, people getting along. It was all about, he would conquer an area. He would pretty much leave the rulers in place. He'd say, give me the taxes. Just pay me. Don't commit any crimes against me. and everything's cool. You don't have to change very much, and that's how he ruled, and it worked. Cyrus replaced oppression with tolerance and brutality with wisdom. Cyrus the Great was remembered for his wisdom, justice, and compassion. And the kingdom of Judah had fallen. It's in the Old Testament. After the time of Judges, the nation of Israel had split, and Judah was one of the kingdoms, and it had fallen to the Babylonian Empire, and that's Nebuchadnezzar. There are bricks out there now with his name on them. I am Nebuchadnezzar, and he destroyed Jerusalem, and he marched the Jews hundreds of miles from their home, and this is what in the Old Testament is known as the Babylon captivity. And the Babylonians expected the Jews, once they brought them there, to become Babylonians, take on the customs and give up their customs and give up their gods and give up their ways. And of course the Jews resisted this. People have, had their customs and ways for a very long time. And so now we're talking about 539 BC. Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon, takes it from Nebuchadnezzar. And so let's get it straight here. So Cyrus is not elected by the Jews. Cyrus is now in charge of the Jews. He has dominion over the Jews because he took over the guy who had dominion over the Jews. So they just exchanged like property. But Cyrus, like I said, he was cool with Jews being Jews and having their language and having their religious beliefs and exercise of it. And so the Jews they like that. See, that's better than it was with Nebuchadnezzar. It still isn't great, but Cyrus fixed that. A year later, he issued a proclamation that says that all the exiled peoples of Babylon can go home and they can repair their cities. But see, that isn't like, Cyrus set them free. These cities that they were allowed to go back to, Cyrus had conquered them too. So in effect, you've got these cities that the Babylonians had destroyed, and Cyrus says, okay, Jews, you can go back and fix the city up. Don't forget to pay my taxes, behave. It's the same thing. And it was, a lot of stability. The people are happier, and it makes sense. Cyrus got very, very wealthy and was very, very powerful as a result. But at no time did the Jews vote for him. At no time did the Jews ask for him. I don't know how a comparison can be made between. Think about it. Cyrus didn't do anything evil to the Jews or anybody really, unless you count the people who died in the wars against Cyrus. He was a king, and these guys expanded. I'm not saying it's a great idea to do that, but it's not evil. Cyrus, he was tolerant. He allowed exiled people to return. So I don't see the correlation between Cyrus and Trump. Not really a similarity. And when you think about the rest of the Bible, Proverbs 22:24, right, says, "Do not associate with a man given to anger, or go with a hot-tempered man." Proverbs 23:6 says, "Do not eat the bread of a selfish man or desire his delicacies." 1 Corinthians 5:9, "I wrote you in my letter not to associate with immoral people." Proverbs 4:14, "Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not proceed in the way of evil men." There's a lot. Corinthians 6:14, "Do not be bound together with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, light and darkness?" In Psalm 1:1, "How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit at the seat of scoffers." As far as I can recall, Jesus had very few interactions with rich people. He spoke of rich people, but I don't remember him speaking to rich people or having a rich man as a disciple. Trump is decidedly rich and wants to be richer. He spends time with rich people and has made them richer. I can't think of anything Trump has done for poor people, even poor white people. except promise him he'll fight to retain, white privilege, but Trump benefits from that too. You cannot believe that God approves of this man. You can't believe that an all-powerful God needs Trump's help. And nowhere in Scripture has God ever commanded his faithful to follow an unjust man. So I don't get it. You tell me, how do you justify that argument that Trump is an instrument of God?